Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Herbal Mana Podcast, where we dive into all things natural to help you hurt less and live more. I'm Todd Bailey, the CEO of Herbal Mana. Now, in our case, we do topical creams for managing pain. We use DMSO and all kinds of other goodness. But today, we're not talking about that. We're talking about chiropractic. And today, I get to, this will be a lot of fun. Dr. Dwayne Hoskins. Dr. Hoskins, the gentle giant of chiropractic. I love that.
Thank you.
So as far as gentle giant, that means you're tall, broad. You look like you could.
I'm 6'2". I'm struggling. I'm fighting a good fight to get under 350. I'm a third-degree black belt instructor. So I have the giant that was gifted to me and that I also trained, but I also have the gentle that's been gifted to me as well. So yeah, I'm a gentle giant, a big fluffy teddy bear that can do some martial arts on you, bud, if you need to.
That I like. When I go to see my chiropractor at the same unit, they've got two people I see. One is Dr. Christina. She's all of about 5'2", has a heck of a time adjusting me, but she's great at some of the extremity scraping and adjusting. But my main guy, he's like your size, bear of a guy, so he can actually get the job done because I'm 6'4" and about 235, and I hit the weights 5 days a week. So I need somebody who can actually crank things. Plus, I've got all kinds of body issues, 20 orthopedic surgeries and lots of combat, lots of scars, lots of stuff. Now, in your case, I heard that you had an injury that led you down this path. How did that come about? How did you end up in chiropractic because of an injury?
Well, my high school was very small, so we didn't have a football team. I would have been a football star because of my size. I've always been big. So I was a basketball manager. We didn't even have a track team, for shot put or discus. So my senior year, I was like, you know what, I want to play on a football team when I get to college. So might as well try baseball. And so we did baseball. And just not being part of the crew that normally was the varsity team, I just got put in sparingly. I wasn't taught any skills. And so one game I got put in and, they suck you into to swing after that high fast ball, right? And I just swung as hard as I could, and I just remember my body turning further than I thought it should have, and that was painful. That and at New Year's Eve party, we were roller skating. I don't know if you remember roller skating when your shoes have 8 wheels on each or 4 wheels on each boot.
Yep.
But I fell on my tailbone and actually found out decades later they have a compression fracture at T12, T10, T12 area.
Gotcha.
So all that together, I was just like, something's not right. And my cousin's uncle was a chiropractor. And so we went to go see him, and he introduced me to the art and the science and the practice of chiropractic.
Huh. The fracture you had in your back, compression fracture? Didn't know it at the time?
Didn't know it at the time.
Not
when
crazy.
I fell, I remember saying, oh, my back. And then when I put my hand down to get up, it was like, my wrist was pointing in the wrong direction. And it's like, my wrist. And so that's what they focused on when they took me to the hospital to get a cast on it. So, I didn't find out until later I had a compression fracture.
That's interesting. Teenage boys can absorb a lot. I didn't know until I was late 20s. I had to see a chiropractor because I was having some back pain. He took some films and he said, no wonder it's around T10, T11, 2 compression fractures. And then we had to retrace history to find that it was on a kickoff my junior year playing football. I was the kicker. I kicked, and then I was able to run down the field first. Already had a head of steam. And then I hit David Toy head on, and we kind of bounced off each other, and he ran over me. I'd never experienced that in my life. I outweighed David by 25 pounds. I was a big kid. Well, for the time, a big kid. And later, I kicked to somebody else later in the game. You can see it on the film. And I did the same thing. I left my feet to hit the kid. Back then, we were taught to do that. And I pushed him back 10 yards, just plowed him. Not what I hit David Toy, though. And then I didn't know. I didn't know for a decade what I had done until I went to see a chiropractor. And he said, well, no wonder. Now, welcome to a lifetime of managing these buggers. So when did you decide to go the chiropractic route? Was it right after high school?
No, actually, I was pretty set on going the medical route. I didn't understand the philosophy yet. So for me, it was just another healing alternative. And my grandpa was going through some gastrointestinal issues. The same year, President Reagan was diagnosed in a routine screening for a precancerous polyp.
Remember that?
And that same year, my grandpa was just battling. It's like he's, this and that and this and that. And they finally opened him up and said, crap. And they set him back up because he was eaten up with cancer. So why did the medical doctor looking at the president notice a precancerous polyp? But all these doctors, multiple doctors, couldn't find my grandpa eaten up with cancer. that was a problem here in the boondocks of central Illinois. And so I decided I'm going to change the world by becoming the best emergency room physician there ever was, and come back and change the world and make a difference. And so that's what started me down that road in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Also, before that, I was very intrigued with ophthalmology, changing the physics of light going into the eye. That just intrigued me for some reason. So I was already starting to do that. I was gifted with some intelligence, and I could take tests really well. So I always scored very, very high in any tests that I took. So I was set up to go into whatever profession I chose. Pre-med was where I headed. But then I met this cute little thing, freshman year of high school. And she was very pro chiropractic. And she introduced me to a little bit more of what chiropractic was. And I got introduced to the philosophy of chiropractic, and also got a behind the scenes look at the profession of medicine, um, and the competition that there was, and just the blood basically too, was just the amount of blood that they messed with was beyond comprehensions. I didn't want anything to do with that. But the fundamental principle of chiropractic, we call it principle number one of our 33 base principles, is there is universal intelligence, and that universal intelligence keeps everything in order and in place and gives everything its properties. And that to me fit very well with my worldview, my theology, but it didn't mandate that you had to have a certain theology to believe the rest of the philosophy cascade. And so it fit very well with me. It also fit very well with what I knew and believe, that, God created this machine that we get to have for a little while to take care of itself, self-regulate, self-maintain, self-heal, and do all kinds of things. It's like, okay, this fits exactly with what I believe. This fits exactly with what I know to be true. And so I shifted over to using my pre-med to get into chiropractic school.
All right. No looking back? No regrets about the decision?
No regrets at all about that decision. Even the school I went to at the time was still a college of chiropractic. Now it's a health science university. So they've changed their track. But at the time, I was taught to be a good chiropractor in whatever paradigm I wanted to practice. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I'm happy to do that too. But there's 3 paradigms of chiropractic practice.
Go there.
It trained me and introduced me to everything I needed to be whatever chiropractor I chose to be. And I'm very thankful for that.
I've got a lot of buddies that are on the MD track. Years ago, we were in college together. They went into the MD thing, and they haven't found it to be as satisfying as they hoped. In fact, I tease them a little bit, because for many of them, they have to run into what I call the 4 P's of practice: poke, prod, prescribe, and push them out the door. And they don't get to spend a lot of time with the patient. They've got a certain throughput, a very limited amount of time, and they've got to get on to the next patient.
So paradigm 2, which is the medical style, pay for service, condition-based chiropractic care, is about 20 or 30 years behind the business model of modern medicine. Right now, there's very few solo practitioners in modern medicine. They're in a group practice, they're employed by a hospital system, they're employed by somebody else. So they're basically just employees. And the people running the business don't know medicine, they just know business. And so you got to turn the tables just like at a restaurant. You make more money by turning tables.
That's it. You got to turn it, got to have the truth.
So I see that now. I work with a medical group that takes care of the underserved here in our town. And I see that even in this nonprofit that wants to take care of people. It's all about how fast can we turn the tables? How many people can we see? And it's like, I thought our focus was on the people, not on the number they represented. I thought our focus was on the care we gave, not how much care we gave to everybody. And so they don't like me in meetings sometimes, reminding them why we exist in the first place. But I'm starting to see that in paradigm 2 chiropractors, the ones that do care plans, the ones that do, we're going to take care of this condition until it's better. We're going to take care of this diagnosis and make it better. They have to turn tables. They've got big staff. They got big offices.
I have seen that overhead from some of the consultants in the practice. In the industry.
I practice in what's paradigm 3, which is a non-therapeutic objective straight. So what I do is not to solve any other issue than vertebral subluxation. That's the only thing that I look for. That's the only thing I assess for. That's the only thing that I adjust the spine for. And so I have one thing to look for. I have one thing to assess. I have one thing to address, and then one thing to pre-check or post-check to make sure that I did my job. I have no staff. I have, it's all cash. So at the end of the day, I don't owe anybody anything, and they don't owe me. Accounts receivable are 0. And 20 to 50 a day, and it's not stressful on the body, and everybody's happy. And it's a totally different mindset because it's a totally different business model because it's a totly different philosophy of practice.
Yeah, you hit on a bunch of things there. First, the fact that you're doing it yourself. Some chiropractors still do. Some, like their MD buddies, don't spend much time with the patient. They've got a bunch of staff, a bunch of buffers, a bunch of techs. I appreciate that, but I don't find it very satisfying, at least not when I'm getting hands-on help. So if
Right.
I'm seeing my chiropractor, I want to see my chiropractor.
I'm not attacking those individuals, but the mindset is they've tricked themselves into thinking that they're helping people by adding on the medical system. When if we just stuck with chiropractic, it would still be high tech, high touch, and still be high volume, and still give the client what they crave, which is that interaction, that confidence that I'm being taken care of, but also gives me, the practitioner, what I crave, which is that connection with the person that I'm investing my life essence into by giving this life-giving, life-freeing adjustment to allow their body to return to normal.
I like that. The connection to me is critical. As a patient, I like to have the connection because it helps in me to develop the faith in my practitioner. And I think that's a big part of my therapy is having that belief that I am getting good treatment. I am getting good attention. You mentioned subluxation.
Yes.
Not talked about enough. What
No,
is it?
not.
Why does it matter? How do you find it? How do you fix it?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I thought we only had like an hour here. I mean, you just described the entire Doctor of Chiropractic program. The chiropractic vertebral subluxation is a specific entity well defined in 1927 in Stevenson's textbook, Chiropractic or the Philosophy of Chiropractic. That textbook defines the chiropractic vertebral subluxation as having four distinct components. So you have vertebral segments, vertebra, spinal bones, that are in disrelationship with one another. They're moving too much or not enough. They're not happy with their neighbor. That occlude a foramen that the nerve travels through. And that occlusion causes pressure on that nerve, which interferes with the transfer of mental impulse. Now, that mental impulse is not just nerve energy. It's not just, can I get the nerve to fire, but is that nerve healthy enough to carry the information from the brain to the kidneys so that the kidneys know exactly what to do in that moment in time. So the mental impulse is not just, can I get the nerve to fire? Like we did with frogs after we got their legs off, we could still get their legs to fire. Not the same as having the frog jump up to the next level because the brain told it how much to fire and when to fire in coordination with its neighbors. So the mental impulse is important. So that's the standard core definition of what a chiropractic vertebral subluxation is. In 1995, a good friend of mine, Chris Kent, did a paper on it, on what it is. And there was 17 different definitions now then of what a chiropractic vertebral subluxation is. And it got narrowed down to two categories. No matter how many you chose, there's one that had 25 different components. They all fit into those four, but those four fit into two: motion, function, and that information transfer, that transfer of mental impulse. You have to have both to have a chiropractic vertebral subluxation. If you just have lack of motion, it's not a chiropractic thing. Other things can cause interference in the transfer of that mental impulse. It may be a space occupying lesion. That's not a chiropractic thing. But you have to have both for it to qualify for me to offer up the adjustment, the adjustic force into your body. How are we doing so far?
So far, good. But you hit
So
on something interesting. Most folks, when they're thinking about some problem with the spine, it's not working, it's not moving, it must affect that pain I have down my leg. It hurts in my back. But we don't normally think about the other aspects like the impact on organ function.
So let me ask you this. How much of just the spinal column is devoted to pain sensors? Of that little cord that's going down inside your spine, how much of that is dedicated to pain?
Well, today, a lot.
7%.
7%. That's it.
What about the other 93?
Function, I assume.
Exactly right. Information from all the other stuff going on. It's not just function of the organs, but it's coordination between the organs. It's coordination between the muscles. It's coordination between all of the visceral cardiovascular tissue. It's the swelling, the inflammation, all of that stuff, trying to keep homeostasis or not allostasis, trying to keep a balance so the body can respond to any kind of outside stress in a balanced, coordinated, life-giving way. So it's very little to do with pain. All has
And
to
yet
do with life
that's what
expression and
triggers,
life
I think,
experience.
most chiropractic visits, I think, at least talking to folks. And I think they're really missing the boat because they wait till they're in pain. And yes, that manifests, and that's bad. That's bad,
Mhm.
but it's one small aspect
Yeah. Well,
of,
and I tell my clients, especially down at the medical clinic, I have to take care of them a little bit differently and talk to them a little bit differently. It's like, listen, if you listen to your body whisper, you won't have to hear it scream. Your body will tell you when you need what I have to give you. If you listen to it then, you won't have to be in this condition again because we can head it off. We can get your body back towards normal before it starts screaming for the drugs and the intervention and all the other stuff that you've already gone through that you know doesn't work until you get on my table and we get the problem solved, which is causing that interference, which is causing that dysfunction and all the other stuff that's cascading out of it.
it sounds like my wife getting after me. It's pretty common message from her to pay attention, actually pay attention and do something before it gets too bad.
I had a mentor of mine. He was in biblical counseling. He said, Dwayne, he goes, the Holy Spirit's voice often sounds a lot like your wife's.
Holy cow. That makes
Like,
sense. She's
okay, sir, I'll keep that in mind.
definitely a good source for me. And yes, I need to listen more carefully. She's pretty darn good.
So that's the entity, the vertebral subluxation. That's what we're looking for. My bag of tools, my assessment tools includes technology, which is paraspinal thermography, which is, it's 100 years old, the patent is now. I'm part owner in a company that produces and makes them. But basically, it has been shown to be the most direct, unambiguous, uninterfered with way of telling if there's balance and how the nervous system is responding at the spinal level. So we use thermography. There's several different makers, but it shows us how the nervous system is responding. We're measuring heat emission from capillary beds between the spinous and the transverse process of the spine, little capillary beds there. And their only job is to radiate heat from the spinal cord. So if the spinal cord is operating in a balanced fashion, it should be generating heat in a balanced fashion. And it should be sending the same amount of heat out to both sides, both radiators. And therefore the heat should be within 1/10 of a degree. Makes sense. Physiologically, that's accurate. And so if we get a big difference in how the body's responding, or we get one side changing and the other side is stuck, that means information on opening up those blood vessels is not getting there. It's a good indication there might be interference in that mental impulse, that control signal to that area of the spine.
How accessible is that thermography? How available? Yeah.
It's 100 years old.
I am surprised. I've never had a chiropractor or any physician suggest that. I've seen thermography used for, well, it's in lieu of mammograms, things like that. And it's awesome, non-invasive, more accurate.
Exactly.
I have never seen it used for a spinal exam.
Well, Titronics.
Why that is because it, like you said, it's old technology. And I've been to probably, well, half dozen chiropractors here in the Valley. Good folks, great chiropractors.
That's a fight I'm fighting as sales and marketing director is. Used to be, if you want to go down the road of the split in chiropractic, it actually happened at Lyceum of 1926 when B.J. Palmer says, if you're not using thermography, you're not practicing chiropractic. And all the people is like, wait a minute, I've been doing this 10 years, 20 years with you. What have I been doing? If I continue doing that, but I don't have the thermography, am I not doing chiropractic even though I'm doing the same thing I did yesterday? Because that caused a lot of division. And then his business model at the time was way ahead of its time. So that caused some more division. But the device itself has been proven to be inter-examiner reliable. That means I can do the same thing and get the same results for example, between examiners, no matter what their skill level is, as long as they've been basically trained on how to do the scan. Doesn't matter who's doing the scan, it's going to show up the same. Intra-examiner, I can do it, come back later, do it. It shows to be exactly the same. Inter-device, like I could do it with one scanner, grab another scanner and do the same scan, it shows the same results. So it's very reliable, very accurate, very precise.
It's crazy that it's not in every office.
Yeah. And so that's something I'm trying to overcome as sales and marketing director, especially when it's the second technology. It's the first technology patented within the chiropractic profession. It was developed by B.J. Palmer and Doss Evans at Palmer College of Chiropractic, specifically for chiropractors and chiropractic use.
I know I've been to some Palmer grads. I've never seen the thermography, never had it discussed.
Yeah. So Titronics.com is a website, a bunch of videos there on the history, a bunch of physics, physiology.
What's that website again?
Titronics, Titronics.
Tronics.com. I'm going to check that out. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's one of the tools I use. I use leg checks, which is a neural challenge to see how the body's responding to stress, how the pelvis is rotated. The pelvis is a cam. So if the pelvis is rotated, it'll pull one foot up or push one foot down, and you do your tests and stuff. And that's the art of the technique that tells me where to adjust. And then through being a doctor, I get to decide what is the vector, what's the direction and amount of force that I give a specific segment, not a general region, but a very specific joint. How much force am I going to put in there in a very specific vector so that the body can absorb it for correction? So anything out that comes in from outside of the body, by definition, is destructive. The part of the universal intelligence that lives within inside us is called innate intelligence. And its job is to convert that external destructive force into internal corrective force. So my job as a chiropractor, based upon my experience, exposure, training, all the other stuff that makes me who I am, is I want to give your body just enough so that it absorbs all of it for correction and nothing's left over for destruction, bruising, soreness, other damage, broken ribs, whatever. I mean, we can hit you with a truck. The body will absorb some of that for correction, but then what does it deal with all the other force?
Destruction.
Right. So, and if I don't give you enough force, there's not enough for correction. So all of that has to go for destruction. That's usually when something doesn't go and you're really sore the next day, because all of that force had to be absorbed as destructive and absorbed and dealt with that. So that's the physiology of what we do. And then when I get done with that, I go back and do exactly what I did before: thermography, leg checks, palpation, my whole assessment to make sure there's change towards normal. There's
When you
change
do
towards
the
balance.
thermography, how quickly do you get your scan result?
Immediately. I mean, by the time I let go of the trigger, the scan is already on the screen.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's
Diagnostic tool, that would be great.
yeah, it takes it's just three graphs, and then our software analyzes the graphs over your history and says, based upon what I, the doctor, have said is your stuckness or your pattern, and I've identified what that looks like on the scan and what the curves look like, you're 98% in pattern, which means you probably have subluxation. Or there's nothing here in this scan that is even remotely close to the one before, so you probably don't have subluxation. And that's when it's most chiropractors fall short. I don't know if any of your chiropractors have ever said, "There's nothing to do today, Todd. Come back next week and we'll check again. But there's nothing for me to work on today."
Yeah, never experienced that.
It should be a
But
lot
I'm
more.
also not going in until I'm in trouble, so I'm not doing my job either.
Well, that is true. But our goal is to get you to a point where you don't need adjusted. Where you're coming in like, listen, there's nothing to do today. If I did something to you, at best, it's a massage, which I'm not licensed to do. And at worst, it's assault and battery.
Yeah.
I'm doing something I said I know that involves a force, right? And I don't want to do either one of those. So we'll see you next week, and we'll check you again. If you need it, then we'll help your body correct towards normal.
If the thermography.
Well, that's part of it. All by itself is just temperature.
What would that set me back? If I'm a doc and I want to get into it, what's my investment?
The investment is the software, which is subscription based, $50 a month, and then the tool is anywhere between $4 and you can get a used scanner, Fur-based certified, pre-owned scanner for $5,000, and you get a brand new one for $7,500. And they're tanks; they last forever, and we take care of our people.
Chiropractic offices, see lasers, I see soft wave, and those machines are, gosh, a lot of that's north of $30,000 just for the basic machine. Wow, dang, that is surprising. I did not expect to hear that on the podcast. That available, that accessible. And I can't imagine
we have
without data. I love data. When I go see my naturopath, I get blood work and all kinds of stuff when it's warranted, which is pretty often because I've got some stuff. And without the data, she's flying blind. You wouldn't think of doing any sort of counseling with me without the data first.
So your chiropractors are going on, if they're not using an objective assessment, whatever it is, imaging or thermography or some sort of assessment tool, they're using your subjective complaints as the guide. And that is the worst possible guide that there is. Pain is usually the last thing to show up and the first thing to leave.
I do see one fellow over in Boise, about 20 miles from me, and he will not adjust. He will not do anything until he tests. And it's a similar test. Every joint, everything in my back, my legs, my everything, before he starts to dive into any sort of treatment. And every session, same test. He wants to know top to bottom what's working, what's not working before he'll dive in. But others, and they
That's
throw me
part
on
of
the
the
table and
art.
crack away.
Yeah, and that's part of the art of his technique. And it's amazing. And I love to hear that.
I do too. Well, I need that at times because he does, besides the back, he does a lot of extremities testing. And I've had 20 orthopedic surgeries, knee replacements, back surgery, all kinds of things. So often it's not just my back that's out of whack.
Right.
I've got other issues, and he can identify the back issues and then work out to my goofy extremity problems.
Yep. Now, technically, anything that's not the spine doesn't meet our criteria. So you can't adjust.
That's too. That's what he says. That's what he says.
Right. We don't adjust anything outside the spine. We can mobilize it for you. Some
That's
of
what
us
he.
are really good because it's part of our training, and nobody else in town may be able to do it. But just because a chiropractor does it doesn't make it chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, he's
if you
very good
brought your
about
motorcycle, if you
this
brought your
guy.
motorcycle to me and I changed the oil, doesn't mean that was a chiropractic oil change.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
That makes sense. All right. As far as the industry, you pop up in a lot of places.
Really,
A bit of an evangelist, you seem to be. You seem to be
really,
active in your industry.
okay.
What are some of the things? It appears that you've done some teaching, some lecturing, some board representation. What is it you do in the industry and what drives you to do it? Because I really respect this side of what you're doing.
Thank you. Everything that I've told you so far is what drives me to do everything else that you've just asked me about. If we would understand as a profession the blessing that we have for humanity in only focusing on the chiropractic vertebral subluxation, if chiropractors, if that's all they focused on, we could change humanity. Like Elon Musk is by himself changing humanity by what he's done, we could do the same times 10 because we're actually working on humans, not on cars and robots and spaceships.
Yep, and I believe that.
But we don't think that this little thing called the adjustment is enough to satisfy the public. We've been trained and beaten down so much as a profession by other professions that we have a poor self-esteem about our profession. We don't see that all the stuff that we're running to that fills all of the chiropractic magazines has been thrown away by all the other healing professions as ineffective. And we're running to them and grabbing them and trying to use them to produce revenue. We don't see that the newest thing in all of healthcare is something called dysautonomia, the imbalance of the autonomic nervous system. That's what we've been doing for 120 years. It's helping the body auto regulate, get back to a balanced nervous system, specifically autonomic, but more generally, even in the entire system. We've been doing that for 120 years. The rest of all the healing parts are striving to find in their systems how to do that. We do that every day.
Yeah, the other professions have struggled because they've taken such a long detour into simple pills and potions and hoping to get a quick fix without really working on the body, the long-term health of the body.
And we've lost our focus. D.D. Palmer on his tombstone says, I chose to leave behind the study of etiology, the source, and focus on the solution, which is the adjustment. Our profession has gone away from focusing on the adjustment. In fact, Paradigm 2 has also got an offshoot called Paradigm 2M, or the Metapractor. Those that have a DC after their name that don't do chiropractic at all are doing pseudo-medicine because they're doctors. They think they should be able to do drugs and surgery, even though they're not trained to, and it's a different profession. They've gone away from the solution that we offer to only studying etiology. And so we've lost who we are, an identity as a profession. We've lost our unique selling proposition. And we've lost that we are a distinct and separate profession from all the others. And all the states were licensed under the chiropractic laws and regulations, not the medical, not the massage, not the orthopedic, not the anything else. We have our own separate and distinct profession. And if we would just act that way and practice that way, we could change humanity in a very short period of time.
I believe that is true. But I do see, like you've seen, a lot of doctors, they get lured away. They hear about this awesome system, this new way to get more patients through, this new adjustment technique. And I've seen good practices go south.
Well, and it starts in our schools because our schools they're a business. And so they're going to teach everything that if this company is going to give me $20,000-$30,000 a year to name a fountain after them. I'm going to let them influence my curriculum. We have a cartel that's running the industry now, the CCE, the NBCE, the FCLB. They all tell each other what to do, to tell the states and the schools what to do, which is to come to them for recommendations and direction and regulations and laws and stuff, and they get to percolate whatever they want. And so, our schools are like, okay, I'll do whatever you want just to stay credentialed, so I can have students and federal loan money, so that we can stay a business and stay afloat. And the schools don't teach the essentials anymore. They don't teach us how to be chiropractors. They just teach us how to qualify to take the tests and pass the tests. And they're like, good luck, have fun. And then it's like, okay, what do I do? Well, there's a coach over here. I'll do what the coach says. Well, the coach graduated 6 months ago from another college that teaches the same thing. They don't know any better. They just happen to have a coach that graduated 6 months before them. We have a lot of work to do. We don't have a lot of people. I don't know if you know the statistics, but there's only 80,000 chiropractic licenses in the entire United States.
You're kidding.
And only half of them are full-time.
Huh. Well, that explains a good deal.
Explains a good deal. We're all a bunch of crazy loudmouths that speak a lot. In South Carolina alone, we only have 1,800 licenses. And that includes our out-of-state licenses and our retired licenses.
Man, that leaves an underserved public.
So that's why I try to evangelize. That's right. I try to get this. We do have something special to provide, and it's that je ne sais quoi. That's something nobody else has. A certain special something I can't name that is called the chiropractic vertebral subluxation and the specific scientific chiropractic adjustment. Those two together is something nobody else can match. And the results sound weird, but it's also the other driving factor is how would you like to just be normal? Man, that sounds kind of cool. Yeah. No, but everybody wants to be bigger, stronger, faster, better, right? That's sellable. I can sell that. Get you out of pain, bigger, faster, better, stronger. But I challenge anybody listening to this podcast, think of any medical miracle you've ever heard of, including the one Jesus did. All it is the body returning to physiological normal.
Normal sounds pretty good to me these days. I would take normal.
Right?
Healthy, normal.
Right. So that's what we do. I mean, that's our stated goal, is to free up so the body can determine how to get the body back to physiological normal.
You've got a tall order getting some of your brethren in your industry to see the nobility of what you can do. I've seen too many good chiropractors back away from the practice. Too many of them drift into something that's kind of sexy, new, trendy, and others that back away from the adjustments, the maintenance care, the health and wellness part of the care, thinking I'm not doing enough. I'm not making a big enough impact. I could do more, see more, generate more. And it's sad to see, because I've seen some good, actually great practitioners pull back. Yep.
Well, we've been lied to for a very long time, but by those inside and out. And, ask what's my profession it's the same thing. I've swore to protect the profession from enemies within and without. And the only way to do it is tell the truth. Who are we? What are we about? What are we looking for? How do we help the body fix it? And the hard part is, how do we market that? Because in advertising, what's the one thing an advertiser wants to know? What's the pain point you're solving?
Yeah. What are you selling?
I don't have a pain point. That's the whole point, is we take care of something that's not pain. And so it's difficult to even advertise what we do. So I go around and teach, help people understand the philosophy a little better in a grander, a pragmatic way to apply to their practice, but mostly to think in a congruent way, to identify where I'm at, and then to make everything stick there. If I say I'm over here, like non-therapeutic objective straight, I'm not concerned about symptoms. I'm not concerned about conditions. I'm not concerned about medical things that I'm not qualified to diagnose or treat. So why am I playing around in that field at all? But everything about me out in the world is low back pain, neck pain, diabetes, weight loss, insomnia, everything you see out there. And then you come in, it's like, no, we don't deal with any of that. So that incongruency destroys businesses too. Helping people see that. So how do we go about doing that? Well, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of faith.
Yeah, a lot of faith is right. And constant getting the messaging right, constantly staying on message, staying on task, not being drawn off the path into one of those sexy new trends. If your patients to see you, how do you get them to see you enough? How do you get them to see you regularly enough to stay well instead of waiting till they're in pain?
Well, one is education, is to get them to see the need to be seen on a regular basis. Number two is to be accessible. If what I do takes 20, 30, 40 minutes, I can't have a walk-in practice. You can't just stop by, walk in, expect to be seen, and back in your car in 15 minutes, which is our unwritten promise to the people that see us here based upon how we do business. So being available, education, and letting them know, listen, this is how I take care of my wife and my kids. I check them at least once a week. They may not need it, but I check them. And if they need it, we adjust. And we see you every week, no matter what, because life happens and we don't live in a perfect world, and we definitely don't live around perfect people, and you ain't perfect either. And so we're going to check every week. We're going to help your body get back to close to normal as we can. And every week we're going to check and adjust if necessary, check. But we're always going to check once a week, because it's that important for you, your family, your neighborhood, your community, your city, your county, your state, our nation, our world, for you to be as normal as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. One pushback I get occasionally, we sell topical products for chronic pain. And one pushback we get, well, a couple things. First, we'll have somebody with a chronic shoulder injury. It's bugging them for years. They'll buy our product. They'll put it on once. And then we'll get a call the next day. Oh, gosh, that didn't fix my problem that I've had for 10 years, which is kind of funny. A lot of folks want that quick fix. They're kind of taught to do the quick fix. And then the other pushback is we charge money.
Yeah.
It's expensive to be into this wellness thing. And they miss the boat. It is a lot cheaper to be well than it is to wait till you've got a chronic issue. Man,
I think staying well is expensive. Wait till the end of life when everything you've ever worked for and your family's ever worked for goes down the drain in end of life care.
Oh, it's terrible.
That's the biggest wealth transfer in the history of the world.
It is.
Is that end of life palliative care.
Well, the sad thing,
you made choices throughout your life to not take
so
care
much
of
of that now is hitting younger populations, younger, unhealthy populations. That old people care thing, the old people stuff I saw when I was younger, it's now hitting kids in their 40s. We're seeing chronic conditions. In fact, if you look at insurance statistics, you're seeing a lot of full-on disability for people in their 40s. Unbelievable. And a lot of it preventable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Largely preventable. Now talk about expenses. It's a little spendy to get checked each month or each week, or to be on the right supplements, or to eat the right food. But dang, it's nowhere near as expensive as being truly ill, truly chronically sick.
And then the business model you choose to support that is essential too. So I've got 1,100 square feet here, and my total overhead is $1,800 a month.
Sweet. Very smart.
So I've got another chiropractor that shares space with me. So my overhead is half of that.
So the problem I've seen in the industry, we've seen some of my chiropractic buddies and some of my medical buddies sucked into the image. I've got to have a big place. I've got to have a big overhead. I've got to have a big staff. I've got to have whatever.
We've got a great place here too. I mean, it's comfortable. We have enough room to have some people come and talk about different things. Our clients have different, some people do the essential oils and some people do the vitamins, and they can use our space. As long as they're a client, they can use our space, and it's great. But that allows us to keep our fees low. But I also have to protect fee structure for new graduates. So part of my legacy is charging a fee that's fair and approachable by the general public, but also protects the new graduate so they can actually pay their bills.
I like that.
So I can get by with $1 a visit. I've got other means of income. I could do that. I could give away for free, but that doesn't help anybody other than my ego.
Yeah. And it certainly doesn't support the industry.
No. And so we have to protect we have to set our fee structures not only to support us and our family, but also to protect the new graduates so they can have a life and living in this profession as well.
I like that. I like that big picture look.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I love what you're doing. I like the approach. I love that it's more, it's not just an adjustment. It's the philosophical side, the mental, emotional, spiritual side, which is often missing in our medicine.
Yeah. Well, I have a saying is, if you don't know why you're doing it, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
you've got to know why.
Love it. If I'm not doing it for the right reason, I just as well fish.
Yeah. Just might as well. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, find something else. If you can't have heart, soul, and a full belief, and it's not lining up with true integrity, with how you feel, what you believe, what your faith is, got to find something else.
Got to be congruent, man.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. I really appreciate this. Love your insights. I love what you're doing for the profession. We need more folks like you because chiropractic is underrepresented.
Yeah, it is.
I had no idea about how few of you there were. That's shocking to me. But as far as really evangelizing for the profession. Don't see it enough. I see too many folks backing away, apologizing, hiding out, and a few studs, few stars, men and women, stepping up to represent the profession well.
I'm not an official coach and I don't have a coaching program, but I'm happy to talk with anybody over Zoom or in coffee in person, anybody that's struggling with where they're at or who they are. Just send them my way. I'm happy to help in any way
possible.
possible.
Your website, so they can find you. I'll put that down in the show notes. But this is
DocHoskins.com is my main. I've been a tech head since junior high. So when all of these social media stuff comes out, if you see at Doc Hoskins, 99% of the time it's going to be me.
I was pretty impressed to see that, actually, to see a physician on top of the tech side, just grabbing URLs, getting ahead of the social media handles. That was nice.
So there's two other Dr. Hoskins I know. One's a dentist 20 miles away, and the other's a dentist in Colorado. Other than that,
hopefully folks can tell the difference between getting their back work done and their tooth pulled. Anyway, that's awesome. I appreciate your time. This is wonderful.